I'm Clifford Petrey, originally from Kentucky.
Uh-huh.
I moved to Texas in 1963, and I've been there since that date.
Uh-huh.
And I retired from the military in 1977 in Fort Hood, Texas.
So you born in Kentucky?
Yes.
What town?
Corbin.
Corbin, C-O-R...
B-I-N.
C-O-R-B-I-N.
Mm-hmm.
When did you born?
11th of January, 1931.
Tell me about your family when you were growing up, your parents and your siblings.
My parents were obviously country folks.
Okay.
They were farmers. My dad was.
Mm-hmm.
He also spent 45 years in the coal mines. He was a coal miner as well as a farmer. I have had nine brothers and sisters.
9 brothers.
Yeah.
And you are?
I'm number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah.
Wow.
2 of the oldest boys have passed on.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and dad, of course, they passed on.
Mm-hmm.
And they are scattered all over the state of Kentucky and Ohio, as well as Texas. I've adopted that as my home, and I really enjoy living there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful country, beautiful state. I know a lot of people there, and all my interests are there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I stay there.
Tell me about the school you went through. Was it in Kentucky?
The primary and secondary schools were in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
I did get a high school diploma from Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
I attended
What school? Name?
Whitley County High School.
Whitley?
Whitley
County High School.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. When did you graduate?
Actually, I got my diploma in 1959.
1959. Oh.
But I left that school in, I guess, 1948.
48.
Mm-hmm.
And you joined the Army?
Joined the Army and went to Japan in June of 1948.
Wow.
And
what was your specialty? Where did you get the military training? Basic?
at Fort Knox, Kentucky. I took my basic training there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to Japan, I joined the 1st Cavalry Division.
Ah, you are the 1st Cavalry.
Yeah. At Camp McGill in Japan, that's a little west of Yokohama, or Yokosuka, actually.
Yokosuka, yes.
And stayed there for about a year. And then when the 7th Infantry moved out of Korea in 1949, I joined the 7th Infantry Division.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had been in Korea for an extended period of time. I don't know how long, but...
They were from 1945.
Something like that, yeah.
So you joined the 7th?
Yes.
What was your specialty? Were you infantry or engineer?
Infantry.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And just rifleman or heavy machine gun or?
Rifleman.
Rifleman.
Yeah, I was a squad leader and part-time platoon sergeant.
I see.
And that's about the extent of it at that time. Then.
Tell me about the 1st Cavalry. This is very, kind of well-known unit, right?
Yes. We had no mission as such in the 1st Cavalry Division. We were, I think, primarily a show-off division. We did a lot of parade practice and stuff like that. And
I see.
I've had 5 parades in downtown Tokyo in the 48 and early 49.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a good outfit. If you enjoy parades.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a lot of extra work as such. We did spend a lot of time on the parade field and a lot of guard duty and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But after I joined the 7th, we had a lot of field training
Mm-hmm.
A lot of maneuvers, a lot of live firing, squad practice, platoon practice, stuff like that.
Mm. So, when did you go to Korea?
I made the Incheon landing,
Oh, you did?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
on the 17th of September,
Yep.
1950.
Yep.
The Marines went in on one beach, and the 7th Infantry went in on another beach. I don't remember if it's red or blue beach or what.
Yeah.
But we fought our way into Seoul, and I got wounded in Seoul,
Oh.
and I got a head wound. And,
Head?
Yes, head and ear, my left ear,
Oh.
and thought I was going to bleed to death, but fortunately they were able to pull me out, and I had a blood transfusion on the. We had a hospital ship that was docked outside of Seoul, of Incheon, and I had a blood transfusion there, and they shipped me back to Japan, and I had additional blood infused into me, and I stayed there for 35, 40 days, something like that, in that area. And at the end of that part, I boarded a Japanese luxury liner and went to Busan. That was in October. And then we made another landing at Ham Hong, Hung Dam in that area. Ewan, I think, was the beach we went in on at that area. And then we fought our way over to the Chosin Reservoir. And that was in late November of 1950. And we were still in summer wear.
I know.
And the temperature was something like 46, 47 degrees below zero.
Fahrenheit.
And I got wounded there again.
Again? Where?
In my face. I had a hand grenade from the Chinese. And then someone placed me in an ammunition carrier, a tank of sorts. They had a cargo area in the back of the tank, and they put me in there, and I was passed out then. And I don't know how long I stayed there, but that's where the Chinese found me.
Oh.
And that's when they took me out of the tank, and of course I was almost frozen. I couldn't ambulate with any degree of satisfaction or efficiency. Yeah.
When was it?
On the 2nd day of December, 1951.
No, 1950.
1950, yes.
Yeah.
And they kept us, we were separated, there's three of us. For what reason, I have no clue. But they, well, I suppose since we were wounded, we couldn't keep up with the march going north.
Right.
So we went to a Korean farmhouse and spent 4 or 5 days there.
With the Chinese?
With the Chinese.
So they didn't kill you?
No.
Oh.
And
they kept you there?
They kept us there. And for whatever reason, we got the same food that they consumed.
Wow.
We stayed there about 4, maybe 5 days. Then we moved at night 4, 5, or 6 miles
Mm-hmm.
into another community and spent 2 or 3 weeks
Mm-hmm.
at that area, and I never did get interrogated. No one cared or asked me. I don't know if they cared or not,
Mm-hmm.
but we stayed there about 2 or 3 weeks, and then we attempted to go someplace. I'm not sure where,
Uh-huh.
but we walked for 2 or 3 days and came back to the same house, and I never could figure that one out. And we were kept separate from the main body of POWs
Mm-hmm.
until the 15th of April of 1951. Then we went back to Pyeongtaung. That was at Camp 5 was located there,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I stayed at Pyeongtaung until August of 53, and I don't remember the exact dates. It was
Mhm.
8th, 9th, 10th, somewhere in there. Would you consider going to Korea?
Mm-hmm.
And I said no. I would not consider going back to Korea. I've since changed my mind. I carried a chip on my shoulder for a long time against the North Koreans. And then and you pardon me for saying this, but I had in my mind a thought that Korea was and is Korea. The same breed of people who have gone through so much turmoil with the Japanese that they became hardened and brutal like the Japanese were. And I do know that some of the North Korean soldiers were brutal. They did many atrocities that I know about. And I will never forgive those guys for that. I've been in therapy for 16 years.
PTSD?
Therapy.
Yeah. PTSD therapy?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. And I finally found it in my heart that all people are not the same.
Mm-hmm.
They're not all brutal. They're not all sadistic. And it did take me a long time because I had it bad. I mean, I really had a chip on my shoulder. And I could think of nothing good to say about Korea, North or South. But I started reading different articles that I seen published of the progress that the South is making. And I read also and listen to the news media of how backward the North still is. And I kind of believe that. I don't know how, or it's tough for me to understand how an individual like that bunch in the North could be as unconcerned about their nation, about the people of their nation. They're starving to death.
Right.
How a president or whomsoever could disregard the condition of their country and spend all their money on war material rather than feed the population. And I finally came to the conclusion that some of those people in charge of the nation are only in it for what they can get. If as long as they are surviving fat and sassy, got everything they possibly could want, and they are depriving the population of the meagerest of subsistence. That it's not the people, it's the people in charge. And I had a good therapist. And in fact, one of my POW friends that are here today, his cousin is a psychiatrist.
Uh-huh.
And I talked with him for a long time. And he opened my eyes. And I had an Indian from India that I didn't like personally, but he had a lot of good information. And I knew that he was imparting that information. And that changed my mind a lot. But I still didn't want to go back to Korea.
How changed? How did you change? What is your change?
I can see from everything I read the South are doing the things that everything they can do for their people. I can see that. And I can believe that. They've got a road system that is second to none. They have a transportation system that's second to none. They no longer, well, I'm sure that they still have a lot of the older folks that are going to stay with what serves them best, that things that they want to do. Whereas in the North, the people are still starving. Mm-hmm. And they've got a bunch of idiots up there who want only for themselves. And that has changed my total outlook. They're all not the same.
Do you forgive?
I have the ability to withstand the rough winter, the rough life we were living at that time. We always prayed for more food. We always prayed for heat. We always prayed that the Lord would come to our rescue and provide us or give us the ability to provide for ourselves substance. And I think that was a big thing. I really do believe that. And I try to live by that today. Yeah.
Most of them were Christian? Most of them
No.
prayed?
Most of them were not Christians.
Oh.
But they did attend those splinter groups that we had with Norman Hale and Richard Bassett and those others in the company that knew something about Christianity, knew something about the Lord, knew what he was capable of doing, and they and I thought that if these guys can survive with their belief, I can survive with my belief in the Lord, you know. And since those days, I did attend and still attend a lot of church services, and I still firmly believe in the Supreme Being. And I do talk to the Lord a lot today. And
so that really gets you through?
Absolutely.
Were you able to write a letter back to your family in the camp?
Yes. I think I had 4 or 5 letters that my mom did get from me.
Did get from you?
From me.
Okay, so you were allowed to write.
Yes.
Did they give you the paper and pencil?
Yes. We would get paper in large sheets like this.
That long?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we would bend it or fold it and dampen the seam and would be able to tear it straight.
Yeah.
And make sheet size, And I think, if memory serves me correctly, my mom kept the 3 or 4 letters that she got from me, and I read those many times after I came home. And yes, she got them. And I got 3 or 4 letters from home. My sister wrote to me every 3 or 4 days and mailed it into whatever address they gave us. And I don't know where. But we didn't get all the mail that was sent to us, though. I know that for sure. Because my family members, a lot of them, wrote letters to me. But I didn't get that many. I got a few.
Do you still keep that letter?
They are at my mom and dad's house.
When did your parents and your family know that you are in the camp?
Well, as you may know, we were carried as MIA for a long time. They had no confirmation of my status until about August or September of '51, and there was an exchange of information between the Chinese and our government that they did have a large number of POWs, and I don't know exactly when this information was passed or when either side honored what the other side said as far as the status of the troops. I don't know. But I believe that my mom and dad got word that we were no longer MIA, but we were
POW.
POW, but they didn't know where. They knew it was in North Korea or Manchuria or someplace. And Mom didn't really believe that information until she got a letter from me, which was in late 1951. I don't recall now the exact date that she got it, but it was confirmed. She knew for a fact that I was not dead.
What did your parents say to you when you returned home?
Thank God. Pardon me.
Looking back all those years, how do you put all those things, ordeal, suffering,
I try my best not to think about it.
not to think about it?
But not to think about it. But there are times when I used to do a lot of hunting.
Hunting?
And I would go out into the field and freeze my backside off and during some of those times, I would think, man, I've endured this stuff in Korea in 1951, 1950, 1951, 2, and 3. And we had no wood to heat the place up with. And we slept 10 to 12 to 15 people per room. And that's cozy. And, of course, lice was bad.
Ah, yeah.
Everyone was lousy. And we picked lice off each other as best we could, but you can't get rid of those things. So we finally, those that were able would go into the fields or forest, if you will, and gather firewood. And we were able to gather enough wood to heat the floors in the homes, and I think that was the saving promise there. Things did get better after of course, the reservoir was frozen, and we had to walk across the ice into the hillside, and but after the Chinese were able to get boats in there, and it was that came later in early in the year, like March, April, May, somewhere like that. They were able to haul in boatloads of wood, and but we gathered most of our firewood from the forest and from the hills.
I see.
But food was a premium at that time. We were using millet, cracked corn, and I'm not sure if it was maize or a real fine grain.
Do they actually give you grain so that you cooked it, or do they?
Yes.
You cooked it?
Yes.
How? Did you have a tool? Appliances?
Yes, we had large pots, large vats like this, about so thick, and we would build a fire, of course, under those pots, and boil the water and add the grain or whatever we had, and of course, there's very little substance in cracked corn. Diarrhea was bad, and
how many times a day? Twice?
Constantly.
I don't know. I mean the food
Oh.
meal. Were you able
Twice.
to eat twice a day?
Yeah. Of course, it was limited. The amount was limited. They didn't have the stuff, and they couldn't cook it if they didn't have it.
Right.
And it was very strictly rationed. We would get maybe a cup or a cup and a half of cracked corn or millet or whatever we had, high gear, I think they call it. And our systems just weren't adapted to that type food, and diarrhea was rampant.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time. But then in late '51, before the winter set in, we did get an increase in our rations. We got pork.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
The meat.
Meat, yeah.
They gave you meat.
Yeah.
Oh.
And of course we had to pick the hair out of it. It wasn't thoroughly cleaned, you know.
I see.
And wasn't appetizing at all. But if you're hungry, you'll eat. Yeah. So, but we did start getting a little pork, and I think they began to issue rice at that time.
Ah.
We didn't get rice for the first several months of the year, and we ate a lot of peanuts, ground up peanuts, and the rations did improve, not dramatically, but it did improve, and dysentery had slowed down. It wasn't as rampant as originally, because we were getting used to that type of food. I don't recall ever getting beef, but we did get pork, quite a lot of pork. We'd bring in whole hogs that were frozen, and they had been cleaned outside. You know, most of the hair had been removed, and all the innards had been removed, and we just got pork as you see it there. You know.
How did you cook?
We had pots that we cooked it in, and
Boiled?
boiled. Yeah. We did get a few potatoes. We did get some turnips.
Yeah.
And that was about the extent of it.
Very good.
Yeah. We thought it was excellent, you know, after having pure cracked corn and millet. Yeah. Some of us survived. How I really can't put a lot of emphasis on that, but fortunately I'm here.
What was the most difficult thing in the camp? What really bothers you and really you craved for?
Heat in the winter.
Heat?
Heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course food. That was a constant thing. We just simply didn't have enough to fill our desires or needs, really. And we hadn't no fishing gear. We couldn't catch fish. Had no hooks or lines or anything like that. But a little ingenuity on the part of some of our troops, they were able to make musical instruments. One guy made a guitar. It had no guitar strings, but we used wire, or he used wire from whatever. And it didn't sound like a guitar, but it was something to make a noise, to make what they call music. And but things did improve. In late 51, early 52, we began to adapt, you might say, to the conditions and knew what we had to endure to survive. So we did the best we could do.
What did make you get through it? What was it? Hope? God? Whatever?
My faith in God, I think.
Were you Christian at the time?
Not as such, no. I did attend church services regularly.
When?
Before I got into
Okay.
Korea. I did go to chapel back in Japan, and I did attend a lot of church when I was a child growing up. So I had the basic knowledge of the Supreme Being, and it did sound good to me at that time, you know. And I had a lot of faith. I had a lot of faith in the Supreme Being. And, of course, we had Norman Hale, who was our chaplain here. He was a spiritual leader. Richard Bassett was also one of the, and they were both young. They were as young as me, but they delivered a good service as well, I guess, as they knew how. And the good thing about it, they still embrace to this day what they taught back them days, back in those days. And of course, I'm now an ordained deacon of a church, and I go regularly. Every time the doors open, I go. And my wife is also, and she's an inspiration to me. And I think she is a big influence. In fact, I know she was a big influence on me. I did get saved. I did get baptized. And as I said, I am an ordained deacon of a church, and I enjoy that.
Did you know anything about Korea before you go to Korea?
Only hearsay. I had no first-hand information at all. But the people who came back from Korea in 1950 with the 7th Division, of course, they, soldiers talk a lot. And some grumble and complain about this and that and this and that. I really didn't know a lot about Korea or the Korean people, for that matter. And all I heard was complaining.
About what?
Nothing in particular. The duty, primarily. No one that I talked with, of course they were private PFCs and stuff like that, and really didn't have a good handle on the situation, and they, by nature, I guess, didn't have anything good to say about anything in Korea. But I had been in Japan for 27 months when Korea started, and I went to. We moved from Hokkaido, not Hokkaido, Hachinohe, down to Mount Fuji in preparation for the move to Korea.
Right. Yeah.
And I was ready to come back to the States. In fact, my first sergeant called me into his office, I don't remember, in 1950, must have been early September, and advised me that I was going home, and handed me my orders, or attempted to. Then he took them back and tore them up, and of course I was hurt by that. I wanted to go home, and then he told me that all the orders had been rescinded and that we were going to Korea, and I wasn't happy about that.
I bet.
Yeah.
When you were first wounded, so you went to Japan, and you came back because you completely recovered from it?
Yeah. Well, as far as duty was concerned, they decided that I was fully recovered.
Okay.
And
but you were in a country you never knew before, and there's nothing good at the time in Korea, and you were captured. What were you thinking?
I think primarily that's the opinion of all young soldiers. When they're faced with something that they have no knowledge of, have no clue what they're going to do, or why they're going to do it, and I'm sure that I had the same opinion, and why not turn me loose? Why not send me home? But such is not the case. So I took my medicine and joined my unit and went with them north. So
how many meals did you have on the way to Pyeongdong? Once a day or twice a day?
It's kind of hard to say. We ate the same thing the Chinese soldiers were eating.
So you were actually lucky, right?
Really, I was.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Uh-huh.
We had ground up peanuts, and we would mix water with that concoction and drink it. And that is the only substance we had.
Oh, you mean something that Chinese had in their...
Yes. They had
And it was grinded...
Little sock type things about so big.
Yeah. That's a grinded core.
Yeah. And we did not get rice or very little vegetables of any kind because it's the dead of winter and they didn't have fresh vegetables. So we were lucky to get anything, for that matter.
Exactly.
And,
what was your outfit? Was it summer outfit or you were ready for winter?
Summer.
Oh, boy.
And we were dressed in fatigues, of course, with a pair of field trousers and no long johns, no heavy underwear or anything like that, and a field jacket. That does very little to hold out the bitter cold.
I know.
So yeah, we were nearly frozen. Everyone in the division. They had shipped stuff up there, but it didn't get to us. Mm-hmm. We were still with our field jackets and two pair of trousers.
When you were in Changjin Chosun Reservoir, right?
No. When I was on the reservoir at Pyeongdong, we did get padded uniforms, Chinese uniforms.
Oh, when you were in Pyeongdong?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They gave us a pair of padded pants and a padded jacket.
Good.
But no cap, no hat of any kind.
How would you describe that coldness that you experienced there?
Miserable, at best. I mean, being a southern boy to begin with and not used to real cold weather, and then spent my time in Japan. Of course, it was cold in the wintertime in Japan, but not like in Siberia. Along the reservoir that area was in Siberia, as far as I'm concerned. It was just as cold there as in Siberia, I think. It was miserable. It was miserable at best. You never get used to that kind of life. I didn't. I never did adapt to that lifestyle. I just couldn't do it. It's just that simple.
So when you arrived at Pyeongdong Camp 5, how was your wounds in your face? Did it heal?
Pretty much, yeah. I got hit right on the bridge of my nose with a piece of shrapnel.
Oh.
And it was a concussion type grenade, mm-hmm. but there were fragments from it. So I got knocked out with that stuff.
Yeah.
It had one small area on the bridge of my nose.
Yeah.
And that had pretty well healed by that time.
It's amazing, isn't it? These
It
days,
really is.
people, if they have something like that scar, they will just hurry into the emergency and they got every kind of medicines, injections. But your face completely healed without any medicine.
Really,
right?
yeah.
Amazing, isn't it?
It really is. I got my first wound. I thought was going to do me in. I got shot through the ear. I had a bullet to go through my ear. It shot the name out of my helmet, and I had shrapnel in here and up in here and all in this area.
Right.
And inside the ear, I got 2 or 3 small fragments, and I got all of it out except one small piece, and that 2 years later, it worked its way out, and it was like a kitchen match head, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It finally worked out, and that, as far as I know, that is the only thing that remained for any length of time. Now, I had 3 or 4 pieces of shrapnel in my head. They managed to cut those out, and survival, I guess, was the next thing.